Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:07. It's O'Connor and Company, and we're jazzing things up here for the next 2 hours of our program. It's Larry O'Connor alongside my own personal Miami sound machine, Mercedes Schlapp.
I thought my sister was your own personal Miami. She sounds more Miami than I do.
That's true. She's very Miami. I love your sister. Not nearly as much as she loves me, but it's okay. I'm married.
She loves you, Larry.
At 7:35, Salena Zito, Washington Examiner, will join us. And at 8:05, Katie McFarland. I'm glad neither of them are listening.
I know, right?
Neither your sister nor my wife.
Now I'll send her a text and she'll be like, I love Larry. He's the best. When are they coming to Miami?
Yeah. Joining us right now is Lori Lowenthal Marcus. Her child is an alumni of Columbia University, and she has been monitoring exactly the widespread growing anti-Semitism on the campus of that Ivy League university that was focused yesterday on a hearing on Capitol Hill from the House Republicans. Lori, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you witnessed through your child and what your child had to endure, and how long has this been going on? And by the way, and if I may add to my compound question, what was the response from the administrators at Columbia when you raised it to their attention?
Well, Columbia has been a hotbed of anti-Semitism for a very long time, for at least 2 decades. And it was unfortunate to hear President Shafiq act as if this was really just the beginning of the problem, and they were beginning to look into it, and they were putting in place procedures when this has been going on for a very long time. It's just that since October 7th, the anti-Semitism, the hatred of Jews, has been very brazen out front and on the lips not only of students but of faculty. And that also has been going on for a long time. So, yes, go ahead, Mercedes.
Lori, were you surprised with the responses that came from the president of Columbia University? Obviously, we know that that the Harvard president, the University of Pennsylvania president, both had to resign because they did such a horrific job in responding to the House committee. And yet you would think that the Colombian president would know, like, how, okay, what are the pitfalls to avoid? That didn't seem to work in her favor in any way.
Well, she didn't mostly fall into the same traps as the other presidents of the universities did, but she fell into different ones, and that's because they all have the same problem. There's been virulent and violent Jew hatred on their campuses, and they haven't done very much at all. So it was different. They didn't say you had to put it in context. They didn't say it depends. But what they did was fumble around. Other than, I have to say, one of the co-chairs of the Board of Trustees, Ms. Shipman, did a pretty good job of being direct and honest. At least she acknowledged that there is a problem, that some of the things that have been said by faculty members are absolutely inexcusable, and what are they still doing there? So, maybe a D- instead of absolute Fs, like the first 3 presidents received, but not enough, that's for sure. The D- is not enough.
Yeah, it was definitely the testimony was really very Claude Rains out of Casablanca. I am shocked to see that this is going on, and we're definitely going to do something about it. And you often heard, listen, that didn't come from the staff or the administration. Those were student groups that did that. But something tells me that they would crack down on student groups if they didn't agree with some of the content they were producing.
Well, I don't know that they agree with the content. It just doesn't bother them as much as if there were outrageous lies and calls for death of any other minority group. So deliberate indifference, absolutely. Agreement, I can't judge that, particularly based on performances, but you're correct that any other group who said other group of students is calling for the death of me and my people, that would be taken care of real quick.
So what do you want
Lori,
them to do? Oh, go ahead, Mercedes. Sorry.
Oh, Lori, you're legal director for the Deborah Project, focused on basically helping those discriminated against in educational settings because they are Jewish. I mean, I'm sure right now, Jewish students do not feel safe on college campuses, especially on these Ivy League college campuses. I mean, how do these kids, how do they survive? I mean, how do they get through this really difficult time where they don't feel that they're being even protected by their own university?
It's not just that they don't feel protected. They feel as if they have a target on their back every minute of every day during their college experience, and that is unforgivable. I know kids who have talked to me from all across the country in all kinds of colleges and universities who say, I think before I say anything, because if I'm not sufficiently anti-Israel, I am called a blanking Zionist, and that is the curse word of the day. If Israeli students are afraid to speak Hebrew, people put their Jewish stars in their shirts or take them off altogether. And it is because they are not being protected. The students who are rioting and screaming and breaking things are not being told, you're out of here. You do that again. That's a violation not only of the code of conduct, but of decency and the law. And yet they're allowed to show up day in and day out screaming Jew hatred.
I've been to Columbia. I toured it with my daughter when she was choosing colleges. She chose not to go there, but I noticed that a lot of the buildings and a lot of the major plaques that I see honoring donors, they appeared, to me at least, to have Jewish names. I think that there are some pretty famous Jewish alums from Columbia that do a lot to support that university. Have they said anything? Has there been any? I would think that they would not be happy with this, Lori.
I'm sure they're not happy. The ones who are alive are not happy with this. In a bygone, look, my dad went to Columbia also. So both my son and my dad went to Columbia. And it was not like this kind of hatred of anybody was not permissible when my dad went. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't nasty, awful racism, and there will always be hatred of others. What's different now is that it's out front, brazen, in your face, and that's permitted. So the Jewish donors, look, Jewish money, any kind of money is always good to take. That's nice for the university. They love those donors, but they don't listen to them if they raise their voices. We have seen at Penn and at Harvard, well-known in terms of financially well-off alums yanking money. But when you have a Harvard or you have a Columbia that has such a enormous budget and reservoir of funds, it's going to take a while before Jews raising their voices or other supporters, allies, raising their voices for the administration to respond. It's a shame that mere moral compass isn't guiding these professionals at the universities, the administrators, because that's absent.
Thank you for letting us shine the light on this, and please keep us updated on your efforts to make some change here at Columbia. Appreciate it, Lori.
I sure will. Thank you.
That's Lori Lowenthal Marcus. It is 7:15 WMAL Traffic and Weather.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Long Windows. We do window replacement the right way, the long way. Visit longwindows.com.
You don't have to be a diamond expert to buy like one. The best quality and value diamonds are at Mervis Diamond Importers.
On the next Vince Coglianese show, Joe Biden has a new corn pop-sized tale about how his uncle, who's also his grandfather, crashed a plane into the ground and they got eaten by cannibals. Join us 3 to 6 right here on WMAL.
Mercedes, an incredibly disturbing story happening to a really good man, John Eastman. John Eastman was a legal advisor to Donald Trump, a frequent guest on my program when I was on in the afternoons. He's California-based, so because of time change issues, Not as easy to get him on in the morning show, but he is a brilliant legal scholar. He ran for Attorney General of the state of California. His crime, of course, was giving legal advice to Donald Trump after the election in 2020. He has recently been disbarred now in California. He is facing criminal charges in that ridiculous Fulton County, Georgia case. And now this latest, as if that weren't enough, he recently found out that Bank of America had canceled all of his accounts, as well as USAA, where he had accounts and various credit cards and such. This is called debanking. We saw them do this to Nigel Farage in England, and he brought attention to it, where banks just decide, we're not going to take your business anymore. And they, without any notice, just cut the person off. And all of their financial transactions that had been set up are just hanging in limbo.
Yeah, and it's not just conservative figures, but also conservative organizations like the NRA. They've had this similar situation as well. You know, it's very troubling to watch that these big banks could just say, okay, we're going to close your account. Like, it was shocking. I think it's, as he explained it, it's rather despicable. And you know, it just shows that there's this wokeness, this anti-Trumpism that has infiltrated our corporate institutions, and it's actually very dangerous. I mean, it just shows that if you decide you're going to help a political candidate, that then you become the target for them to try to take you down through lawfare, through financial means, do everything they can to disrupt, to bankrupt, to minimize anyone who would support a political candidate.
These are personal financial accounts, by the way. They're not to conduct any sort of business or any sort of, as if that matters. That they can't say, well, you were using these accounts to funnel money through a nonprofit or a political organization. And no, these are his personal finances to pay his bills. By the way, he has a USAA account because his father was a veteran of the Navy in World War II. Bank of America did send him a notice in November. He's been dealing with them and trying to fight this. And then abruptly, he got a voicemail last week.
If you have recently received a letter stating your account or accounts are being closed, the reason for this is that Bank of America made a business decision to close the account, and or we have determined you're operating in a business type we have chosen not to service at Bank of America. It is a Bank of America policy that we do not provide any additional information regarding our decision to close an account, and the decision to close the account will not be reconsidered.
There you go. And when he asked USAA to explain why they had closed his accounts, they said the same thing. It's our policy not to explain this, which is really, sort of convenient, isn't it?
There's no transparency. First of all, you entrust your money to that institution. You would think you would at least have some sort of relationship or the opportunity to even question the institution, and yet they shut you out. I mean, it's outrageous. It's
outrageous. Based on political affiliation and political activity, they are deciding that you are a non-person. They are literally dehumanizing you. And you are the kind of individual that is not worthy of being engaged with in any way whatsoever. Meanwhile, you can have whatever outrageous left-wing policy. Have you ever heard of a left-winger or a liberal having to deal with this with a financial institution? Have they ever combed through their records, searched someone's name, and said, oh, well, we don't want to do business with this person who encourages the murder of babies up until the moment of birth?
Well, I mean, do you think they've shut down any of Hunter Biden's bank accounts?
Great question. Hey, listen, he was funneling millions through those accounts.
He was funneling millions into
18
the
different
account.
shell corporations, you bet. Yeah. Hey, that's good business, man.
But it is troubling, especially as we've seen the banking industry become more they are becoming more of a monopoly. They're becoming bigger institutions, taking out these more community-style banks that service their local constituents. No, these are the big banks making these decisions, and it's very concerning. And this is when you got to go into these banks and figure out, okay, who's on the board, why are they debanking conservatives, and they need to. The account holder have a right to know. I'm sorry.
This is also a result of the ESG policies that your friend Will Hild over at Consumer Reports constantly brings to our attention. These huge hedge fund managers and people who get onto the board of directors and they say, okay, now this is how we're going to change things. It's not through votes. It's not through legislation. It's not done transparently. And this is how they affect our culture and affect our entire nation insidiously, one decision at a time. It's outrageous. And our hearts and our prayers are with John Eastman as he goes through the attempt to attack this man and destroy his character and destroy him as a person has been one of the most despicable things that I've witnessed in a long, long time. And that's saying something, considering the time we're living in right now. It is 7:23.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37. It's O'Connor and Company here on your favorite radio station. And unlike NPR, we respect your intelligence and we don't steal your money from you to pay for what we do every day. So
that's a good strategy. Let the free market decide, right?
I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, I see their offices and their studios and the size of their staffs and the private chefs they get for their meals. I'm thinking they're onto something.
Private chefs? Are you kidding me?
Oh, God. Oh, dude, get over to NPR. It's a very different climate, and
I'm not their type, believe me.
Well, maybe instead of defunding PR, we need to take over PR.
I kind of like that idea,
right?
too.
It's like, let's play this game. Let's play this game the right way.
Hire conservatives. Let's see how
Joining
that
goes. Us at 8:05, KT McFarland. Also, hire entertaining radio hosts. Hire Salena Zito, for crying out loud. Salena Zito, one of the finest journalists in America, working at the Washington Examiner. And, of course, her beat is always the middle of somewhere, we like to say, Salena, right? Because, wasn't it Bill Kristol who said, oh, you're just reporting from the middle of nowhere somewhere during the 2016 campaign?
No, that as the phrase actually came from him making a comment about feeling bad for Patriot and Phillies fans that they had to go to Minnesota to watch the Super Bowl because their teams were playing in Minnesota. And he goes, in the middle of nowhere. And I just was like, no, nowhere in this country is the middle of nowhere. This is America. Everywhere's the middle of somewhere.
There you go. I love that so much. And of course, you, a Western Pennsylvania gal, you love that beat in a big way. And you had President Biden in your neighborhood there trying to rally steel workers to swing on over to his side. Are the good voters of Western Pennsylvania buying what he's selling? Because the message from this White House is, what are you complaining about? Everything's great, better than ever.
Yeah, so it's, Pennsylvania, as you know, 2016, Trump narrowly won it. 2020, Biden narrowly won it. It's going to be a tight race. The West is going to be very important. Donald Trump needs to gin those voters back up, and Biden needs to maintain what he did in 2020. Now, the challenge for Biden is in terms of the working class. He made interesting choices in the past 3 days: Scranton, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia. These are places that are already going to vote for him. But these numbers in these places have maintained they've been relatively the same over the past few years. It is the rural counties, or the collar counties outside of these cities, that are going to make the difference. And I think it's interesting that he chose not to go to a place where he needs to get more votes, but went to places where he is assured of votes. Whereas if you looked at the choice that Donald Trump made on Saturday, he was in the Lehigh Valley, and there were 42,000 people there. And you need those counties. You need Lehigh County. You need Northampton County to win. You don't need Pittsburgh or Philly to win, because those are givens in the numbers. And in terms of the working class, here's Joe Biden's challenge. These voters are, first of all, still not recovering from inflation. Inflationary costs are rough for the middle class and working class voters. The food costs have remained very, very high, and there's been no relief from that. Energy costs are high, not just in gasoline, but also utilities, and also other basics like car insurance, homeowner insurance are up 22 to 30%, and their wages haven't increased along with all those costs. And then the most important thing is Biden's rules on working class jobs. So while he was at U.S. Steel yesterday, just down the road, a steel plant closed because the ITF would not put tariffs on China and Japan and South Korea for their steel and the tin plate steel. So the tin plate plant, last one left in America, closed this month, and 1,000 steel workers lost their jobs. Then there's the LNG pause, right? The liquid natural gas. He's paused it. That's one of the most robust job creators in this state. And so that, who does that affect? Welders, laborers, technicians, engineers, chemists.
Well,
so he has a challenge here.
Yeah, it is a challenge, Salena, but there is a reality, too, of Governor Shapiro. Obviously, you have 2 Democrat senators. I mean, the Democrats are very well organized in Pennsylvania. How does that play into all of this? Obviously, with early voting, we lost that critical, Republicans lost that critical seat on the court. There are some obstacles for Trump as well, just from the political machinery that we see in Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh. How can that be managed from the Trump side?
Well, first, most importantly, they have to do early voting. They just have to. It is incumbent on them to win, to do early voting and do it in a meaningful way. You may not like, you meaning anyone, you may not like that there's early voting, but this is the sandbox that you have to play in. And if you want to win, you got to play in the sandbox. And John Fetterman had over 700,000 votes before that debate happened in 2022. And why wouldn't Trump want to do early voting? I mean, there is an enthusiasm for him that why would you not want to capture that in a bottle and bank it? So I think that is very, very important. I think Shapiro and Fetterman's wins were not instructive in that this means the Democratic Party has taken over the state. It just means that the Republicans had really bad candidates in 2022, and when you recognize that and you understand that that is why they won, not because people liked Democrats more or disliked Republicans that year. It's just that you have to have good candidates. So I think that's another thing. And you also have to look at the voter registration, how much it has changed dramatically since 2020. There are over 600,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans in the state in 2020. That number is now down to 389,000.
Wow. Salena, Zito, hopefully we can have you on a regular basis because your reporting in Pennsylvania is going to be critically important for us.
No problem. Always happy to come on with you guys.
Well, thank you. I wish we had more time, but we are out of it right now. Thanks for joining us. It is 7:45. Follow all of the work that she's doing at Examiner and all of the various outlets in which you can find Salena Zito's great stuff, please. It's 7:45, WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Whitten.
Making sense of your world.
I'm a millennial, and I love your show.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
It's fantastic.
Making sense of the...
Ah, yes, the Masters. Have you ever been to the Masters?
Oh, no. Come on,
the
Larry.
golf tournament in Augusta, Georgia. It's only the elite of the elite get to go to the Masters.
So have you been there?
No, I haven't. They wouldn't let me in.
Oh.
I'd be like Rodney Dangerfield hitting the grass there. I would bring a different vibe to the Masters if I were there.
Yeah, no, 100%. You'd be a distraction, is what they would call you.
I'm not special. I'm not classy. I'm not super cool. I'm not powerful. Like D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
She went to the Masters?
She went to the Masters, and get this, D.C. taxpayers paid for it.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I mean, are you surprised?
It was part of her sports and economic development visit because apparently she thinks she's going to bring the Masters to Washington, D.C. or something.
Yeah. There's that golf course. What's a golf course is it at Haynes Point or something like that? The one that's like
down by.
Where are they going to bring the Masters? I don't see golf happening in like downtown DC. Do you?
No, I mean, listen, golf happens here, but it happens, at Congressional, or it happens out of the.
Oh, or how about the Trump, golf course out
Potomac,
in Sterling?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, but that ain't DC, baby. So I don't quite sure what this is, but the whole thing has been written off at the expense as a quote business opportunity to promote economic. Muriel Bowser wanted to go to the Masters, so she went, and that's fine. She can pay for it herself, but no,
right?
DC paid for it.
These people, and that's when you have crime like just increasing in DC. There's the constant carjackings. There's these teenagers. What did they do? They ransacked the CVS. I mean, it just doesn't stop.
Navy Yard is. Listen, you want to talk about sports and economic development? You've got Nats Park and you've got Audi Field down in the Navy Yard area, and nobody wants to go to the games because they're afraid they're going to get carjacked or mugged walking to the stadium. So don't go to Augusta. Go down to Navy Yard and clean up the crime problem, Muriel Bowser.
How about go visit like the police department? Yes. Maybe she should go and visit the police departments and be like, "What do you need? How can we support you?"
You know what else? It's 7:53.
Oh.